The hangar bay hummed with the low, constant growl of jet engines. The smell of oil, metal, and ocean salt filled the air. It was another early morning at Naval Air Station Fallon, and for most, it was just routine maintenance day. But for James Keller, a single dad, a janitor, and once something much more, it was just another quiet shift mopping up the floors that he once strode across with pride. He moved quietly, pushing the mop in smooth circles under the fluorescent lights. The faint echo of boots clattering against the hangar floor reached his ears, and instinctively his spine straightened. Old habits, military habits, died hard. He turned just in time to see a group of officers entering the bay. Their uniforms gleamed, medals catching the light. Leading them was Admiral Royce Barrett, the highest-ranking SEAL officer in the region, a man whose presence demanded attention. "All right, gentlemen," Barrett's voice boomed. "This is where they prepped the old F/A-18s before they went out. Today's inspection needs to be spotless. We've got VIP coming." James lowered his head, keeping his movements quiet. The mop bucket squeaked faintly as he wheeled it past the group. One of the younger officers smirked. "Hey, old man, you missed a spot," he said mockingly. James didn't respond. He just dipped the mop back into the water and continued working. Admiral Barrett turned his gaze toward the janitor, curiosity flickering in his eyes. "Hold on, son," he said, his voice half amused. "You seem a little too sharp to be just a mop. Pusher, what's your name?" "James Keller, sir," he said softly, not looking up. "Keller," Barrett repeated thoughtfully. Then, with a smirk, he added, "You ever serve, Keller? You've got that look." There was a flicker in James's eyes. "Once," he said simply. "Oh, really?" The Admiral chuckled, folding his arms. "What was your call sign, janitor?" The officers around him snickered, sensing the joke. James paused. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he slowly set the mop aside, straightening to his full height. His voice was calm, but there was something behind it, something heavy. "They called me Lone Eagle, sir." The room fell silent. Admiral Barrett's smile froze. His face paled slightly, the color draining as if someone had punched the air out of him. "What did you just say?" he asked quietly. "Lone Eagle," James repeated, his gaze meeting the Admiral's. "SEAL Team 6, Operation Red Harbor 2003. The Admiral's eyes widened in disbelief. "That's impossible. Lone Eagle was listed MIA after Red Harbor." James nodded slowly. "Yeah." They stopped looking after the fourth day. The officers exchanged stunned looks. Barrett took a step closer, his commanding tone replaced by something uncertain. "You're telling me you're that Lone Eagle?" James gave a small, tired smile. "Used to be." The younger officers didn't know what to do. Everyone had heard the stories of the mission gone wrong, the SEAL who stayed behind to cover his team's escape, who took out a dozen hostiles before disappearing into the chaos. Lone Eagle was a ghost story among operators. No one expected to meet him cleaning hangar floors. Barrett ran a hand through his hair, his voice barely above a whisper. "I flew Overwatch on that op. You saved 3 of my men that night. We thought you were dead." James looked away. "Part of me was." The silence hung heavy until the bay doors clattered open again. A woman's voice called out, bright and clear, "Dad." James turned just in time to see his daughter, Lily, running toward him in her school uniform, a backpack bouncing against her shoulder. She couldn't have been more than 10. He knelt down, smiling as she wrapped her arms around his neck. "You're early, kiddo," he said softly. "The bus broke down. Miss Avery said I could walk since we live close." She glanced up at the Admiral's medals and ribbons, then back at her father. "Are these your friends?" Barrett swallowed hard, trying to find his composure. "You could say that," he murmured. Lily looked around curiously. "Did you tell them you used to fly the big jets, Dad?" James's eyes flicked to the Admiral's, then back to his daughter. "No, sweetheart, I think they just found out." Barrett took a deep breath, his tone shifting to one of deep respect. "Mr. Keller, you have no idea what it means to see you alive." James shook his head. "With respect, sir, that life's behind me. My daughter's my mission now." Barrett nodded slowly. "I understand, but why hide it? You could have come back. The Navy takes care of its own." James's jaw tightened. "They didn't, sir. After Red Harbor, I was captured for 3 months before I escaped." By the time I got home, the Navy had moved on. They gave my benefits to my next of kin, said I didn't exist anymore. I figured. Maybe they were right. Barrett looked gutted. My God, Keller, if I had known. It's fine. James interrupted gently. All I needed was a quiet life, a job, a roof for my kid. Lily tugged at her father's sleeve. Dad, are you in trouble? James smiled, brushing a hand through her hair. Not this time, Angel. Barrett stood straighter, regaining his command presence. Well, Lone Eagle, looks like I owe you a debt I'll never repay. If you ever want your file reinstated, or a proper pension, I'm good, James said firmly. All I need is to make it home for dinner. The Admiral studied him for a moment, then smiled faintly. You're still the same man who refused to leave anyone behind. One of the younger officers, still stunned, finally spoke. Sir, I thought Lone Eagle was a legend. Barrett turned sharply toward him. He is, he said quietly, and you just met him. James nodded politely, picked up his mop again, and went back to work like nothing had happened. Lily stood by his side, watching curiously as her dad continued cleaning the hangar. Barrett lingered for a long moment before turning to his officers. You all remember this, he said in a low voice. Greatness doesn't need medals or titles. Sometimes it's hidden behind a mop bucket. As the officers left, one by one, Barrett stopped at the door. He turned back to James. Lone Eagle, he said quietly. If you ever want to come home, you've still got a squad waiting. James looked up, meeting his eyes with a faint smile. Home's right here, sir. Barrett nodded once, saluted, and walked out. The hangar fell silent again, except for the soft swish of the mop and the distant sound of jets taking off. Lily sat on a toolbox, swinging her legs. Dad, she asked, why do they call you Lone Eagle? James chuckled softly. Because once, a long time ago, I flew alone where no one else would. She thought about that for a moment. But you're not alone anymore. He smiled, warmth filling his tired eyes. No, sweetheart, not anymore. Outside, the sky began to glow orange as the sun rose over the base. The light streamed through the hangar's high windows, reflecting off the polished floor James had just finished cleaning. He leaned on his mop handle, watching the sunrise with quiet pride. In another life, that sunrise might have marked the start of another mission, another flight, another war. But today, it marked something far greater, peace. As Lily grabbed his hand and tugged him toward the exit, James looked back once more at the massive hangar, the place that had once been his battlefield. Then he smiled softly and walked into the sunlight, leaving the ghosts of Lone Eagle behind forever.